Hey folks, thanks for joining us today. And today I'm really pleased to have a friend of mine on once again, only with an entirely different subject. Betsy Westhafer, how are you?
I am so good. I'm so glad to be here, Doug. It's so good to see you again.
Oh, it's really exciting. And you know what's interesting is you've just been doing, what has it been, a couple of years since we did an interview?
Yeah, it has been a while.
Yeah, so anyway, you have been doing some amazing things, and it's been interesting to watch you over the last little while as far as the project that you've developed, this Lovelight Circle and so forth. So that's what I want to talk about today because, as you know, I've kind of changed the approach of what we want to do with this show to really talk about how people are having an incredible impact on other people's lives. And man, I think that you are beginning to be the epitome of that. And I think it's really cool. So, how about telling a little bit of story and, tell us your background? Obviously, you work for a living besides doing this. So, talk a little bit about that. And then, how on earth did you get involved in Love Light Circle?
Okay, sure. So I do have a day job. I have a consulting firm, and our primary focus is on customer leverage programs. So that involves customer advisory boards, customer advocacy, just really working with our clients to help them maximize their key relationships. So that's what I do by day. As far as Love Light Circle, it's one of those things where sometimes good things come out of bad. And unfortunately, we had something really bad that was really the catalyst for the Love Light Circle. So I live in Dayton, Ohio, and Dayton, Ohio has had a very, very rough year in 2019. We had a horrific tornado situation earlier in the spring, and that led to I just heard a statistic yesterday from the person who's heading up the recovery efforts still. 11,000 children were impacted by these tornadoes, and it just
Oh, my
really
goodness.
wiped out a big section of town. We actually had 17 touchdowns that night. It was just awful, and it's going to be a very, very long-term recovery. And then shortly after that, very shortly, I think within a couple of weeks, we had a Klan rally show up. So that was very difficult for our town, because that is certainly not what we're about. And then finally, hopefully the final tragedy, but the last thing that happened is we had a mass shooting in our entertainment district on August 4th. And that's what led to Love Light Circle, because we lost a dear friend and had two others that were seriously injured in that mass shooting. Fortunately, they're fine physically and seem to be doing well emotionally as well. So it was just something that was so hard to wrap your head around. I mean, you hear about these things all the time, and you pray you're never going to be personally impacted by it, but just, it happens. And so what kind of led to this idea of the Love Light Circle, the day after the shooting, along with a couple of friends, including our friend Logan, who was killed in the shooting, along with his parents, we went down to the prayer vigil the next night that was held where this happened. And it was all very good and loving and peaceful, as it should be. And then when the governor got up to speak, a subset of people started getting really rowdy and screaming at him, do something, do something, do something. And it actually got a little contentious. It was a little bit disconcerting, to say the least, and pretty uncomfortable. The next day, we saw on the news that they were doing the same thing at the State House, just screaming at the government to do something. And it just really struck me that, it's just understandably frustrating, but it's not enough to yell at other people to do something. And so I just kept thinking, what's something I can do? What's something we each could do to make a difference in at least our tiny little part? It's a multifaceted problem. There's mental health, there's guns, there's all kinds of different places where we need to do better. But I thought, what's one little piece of this problem that I could personally help solve with the help of, this other group of people that were very impacted? Because I think it's important that we each do something. So I met with Logan's parents and friends, and we decided, yeah, let's do something. Let's do something big. So the concept of Love Light Circle is threefold. One, we wanted to build a community 2, we wanted to fundraise for other nonprofits that have similar missions. And 3, we want to make this into a big national movement that spreads across the country. So if you think about, for example, the pink ribbon, you know it's a brand, you know what it stands for, you know who's impacted, you know there's a big community around it, you know they're making a difference. And what came to us is it doesn't seem like there's a brand for the good guys. And when this happened, and you know the bad stuff gets so much press and the high majority of press, and it really makes you wonder, are the bad guys winning the war? And we don't believe that's true. We believe there are so many more good people, but the bad guys get the press. And so the idea was really to create a brand around people that are proactively doing good things in the world, putting love and light out into the world. Let's build a community around that. Let's build an identifiable brand. So that's what we've done. And next week, I believe, the 28th of November is our target date for launching our web store. And the web store has branded products for this purpose of creating this visible force for good. We've got just to start, we've got about 21 products in the web store that are branded with Lovelight. And 100% of the proceeds from the sales of those products will be going into a fund that we've established, from which we will award grants to deserving nonprofits that have missions in alignment with what we're out to achieve.
You know, it's really interesting. One thing I've said previously is it seems like, and I think you've hit right on it, the news and in general, all we're seeing now is anger and hatred and all of those things. And that's all that the news really portrays. And, you know, it's like maybe once in a while on page 3 or wherever, suddenly there's this little note about something that happened that was kind of, you know, nice or kind. And I think it's a real challenge. And I think you've really hit on it, is that, you know what, there's so much good. There's so many people out there that are touching lives. But those little things here and there just never really get publicized. So really what you're doing is amazing, because you're looking to get it publicized, and maybe, you know, just like a football team, you know, here's these guys constantly going this way. Well, you guys are going to start going this way and start to bring out the good in people, and hopefully we can start to see that more on the news.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's kind of part of it is that people that are doing good in the world, generally speaking, are very humble and modest about it, and don't want to saying, oh, look at the good stuff I'm doing. And so it kind of feeds itself just by the nature of good people, you know. But what we want to do is encourage people to share what they're doing, so that it inspires other people, and that people feel like, oh yeah, I could do that too. And so I think as a community, we need to be a little less bashful about the things that are possible to do to make the world a better place. And the fine line is, you know, you don't want to look like you're really pumping yourself up, but what I think can happen is you can share these good ideas and not make it about yourself. You know, just here's something that somebody's doing, and we want to share those stories on our Facebook community.
Well, and your Facebook community is really amazing. I mean, I followed it, you know, and you started very small. How many followers do you have now? And you're going from state to state. So talk a little bit about what you're doing, and are there some states you haven't hit yet?
So we started this less than 3 months ago, and we have over almost 6,100 members in our Facebook community from 39 states, I believe, and 11 countries. We actually have like 10 people in Germany that are part of this, and we have people in Beirut, Lebanon, and we have people in Amsterdam, and it's just been really fun to see it slowly spread globally. So it's growing, and people are participating, and a lot of really cool stories are emerging from the stuff that's happening on the Facebook community.
Oh, that's fantastic. And how are you getting into the different states? I mean, all of a sudden you're going here, and then all of a sudden you're there. What are you doing in order to accomplish that?
Yeah, so we did a 50-day journey called Operation Shore to Shore when we first launched the site. And we just alphabetically went through every state in the United States and said, today, it's all about Alabama. Who do you know in Alabama? Invite them into the group. If you know an organization in Alabama that you can tag in this group, do that. And so we just asked the community as it built to help us get into these other states. And it was really effective. We got a lot of people from different states. So that's been really fun. I very much look forward when we can say we're 50 for 50, but right now we're at about 39. So that's how we grew it initially. And we've got a lot of other things that we want to do to help grow this community. But we feel like 6,100 in less than 3 months is a pretty good start. And I think that shows the need for something like this. You know, there's just so much ugliness out there on social media, in the regular media. And I think people are looking for that safe haven, that community where they know it's going to be positive and uplifting, and they can feel safe showing up however they show up. We want people to participate however they want. We have people that post positive memes, and if that's what helps them feel good, awesome. We've got people that say, hey, we're out doing this and we want to inspire others to do it. That's great. Some people ask for prayers, and the community really jumps in and helps with that. We had one story a couple weeks ago. This gentleman was going through a divorce, and he didn't know anybody in the group, or so he thought. And so he posted it out there and said, I'm going through a really, really rough time. I don't know anybody in this group. I'm just asking for your prayers for me and my son. And the community exploded with support. And what turns out, he did not realize that Lovelight Circle had started in his home little burb of Dayton, Ohio. So he did know a lot of people in the group.
Wow.
And he lives in California now. And so he actually reconnected with some high school friends who reached out to him privately with support. And it was just a really cool story of how this community just jumped up to love on this guy and to help him through the hard times. And I reached out to him privately too, and he said it absolutely turned things around for him, just that one post. So it's been really amazing to watch.
Well, and I think what's interesting is so often, we just go through our lives, and I think for the most part, I really do believe that for the most part, people are really good. And I think that's the basis of many things. But so often, as we go about our lives, we get so busy doing things and working and trying to support our families and all of those other things that sometimes we forget how just a little prayer here or a little hug here or maybe something a little bit more dramatic if someone is reaching out for some help, that we can do that. And I think this type of thing that you're doing here really helps to remind people, and I think almost inspire people to say, you know what, I haven't been doing that, but I can do it. And I think that's amazing. And we were talking just before we came on, you've had some amazing things happen in just a short amount of time, and you just had a meeting. I'd love for you to share with the audience what's going on with that.
Yeah, this is such a cool story. So one of the members of our core team, Christine Flay, took it upon herself, and that's what we love, are people just like coming up with an idea and taking it and running with it. And so she came up with this idea that she has been putting boxes of Post-it notes and pens in various Starbucks locations with their permission, putting these in these different Starbucks. And people are just using the Post-its, writing notes, and posting them on a wall. And in several locations, entire walls are covered with these brightly covered Post-it notes that have messages of love and hope and faith and all kinds of really cool messages on these Post-it notes. And some of them you can tell are little kid writing, which is really, really awesome to see. And so she started something that's really spreading. We've now got another friend of ours who lives in Alabama who's doing it there. Logan's parents are going to be taking it to Chattanooga where they live. And so the upshot of that it doesn't seem like a really hard thing that Christine did, but it's so impactful and powerful. So it got the attention of Starbucks. And so yesterday we had the very good fortune. Our team met with the senior leadership of Starbucks, representing a region from Nebraska all the way to the East Coast. So we had some really, really great Starbucks leaders. I think there were maybe 10 or 12 of them in this meeting. And so we met down in Cincinnati, and we each shared our piece of the story of Lovelight Circle and what it means to us and how we're plugging in. And so we went through all of that. And the idea initially, we each brought a toy. We were going to do a toy drive, and we were going to wrap these toys, and that's how we were going to end the meeting. Well, after we presented who we are and what we're out to do, one of the senior leaders said, you know what, I think this is what we need to do. I'm going to personally contribute $1,000. And the other senior leader said, and I'm going to match it. And we're going to pack up and we're going to go on a shopping spree to Target. And we had told them about the great need in Dayton for supporting the tornado victims. And so we went to Target and we bought over $2,000 worth of hygiene supplies and coats and hats and gloves. But here's what, Doug, this is so exciting. I'm so excited I get to tell this story. So we're in force, like 15, 20 of us walking through Target. We each have a cart, and we're just throwing stuff in bags. It's really cool. So we were definitely a disruption in the store. And this lady saw what was going on. She's like, what's going on? And so the Starbucks people said, this is what we're doing, and explained it to her. So she went right then, bought a kid's coat, paid for it, put the receipt in the bag, and handed it to one of the people from Starbucks. And they said, we're company policy, we can't accept it, but Lovelight Circle certainly can. So they brought one of us over and we got the coat and put it in the bag. But this lady was inspired just by watching us do our shopping in Target. And we believe that it's that ripple effect. If more people are proactively out there doing these kind things, then it will inspire others. One person posted on the Facebook group, and this was so simple and so sweet. She just said, this group makes me be better. And to your point, like people can do this, but are they too wrapped up in their busy lives? And I will say for sure, I was guilty of that. And
oh, absolutely.
We're all guilty.
Yeah, we all are.
Yeah. And so it's made me a better person just by being around all these amazing people that are doing such good things. So we feel like in 3 months' time, we've really already made an impact, and we're not even out of the gate yet. We've got some really big ideas of things we want to do. But what's really exciting is Starbucks' mission aligns so much with ours. They're out to change the world too. We met some of the most amazing people yesterday. And at the corporate level, they are out to do something really big to change the world. And so they want to work with us in any way possible to do that. We're still trying to figure out what that looks like, but we know the intention is to work side by side with Starbucks using their visibility and their resources and their, the stage that they have. We're trying to figure out, okay, how do we work together to really make this spread?
Oh, that's fantastic. And here's the question. Did the media pick up on the fact that there were a number of protesters at Target?
Protesters?
Positive protesters.
Yeah. Well, we didn't, because we didn't know this was going to happen. We didn't try to arrange any kind of media. And we're very fortunate. We got Cox Media Group on board as a partner as well. And so we're actually waiting for the web store to launch before we do a whole lot of media, because we want to drive people to the store and get them wearing. We've got these beautiful bright green T-shirts that really show up in a crowd. They're not obnoxious green. They're just beautiful green. And we've got hats and sweatshirts and candles and all kinds of cool products in the store. So we really want to drive people to the store, and hopefully, in time for Christmas, that people will buy something that will have an impact, to help change the world.
Well, and I was being a bit sarcastic. I mean, my point was, is if you guys had been protesting something in Target, the news would have been there, regardless if anybody had arranged it or not. So, and that's the point. But I think that is just amazing. The Starbucks has picked up on that and is going to align themselves with you guys. That is wonderful. Well, I'd love for you to share some stories with the audience about literally what has happened and some of the impact. You've shared a couple. But I'd love for you to share some more, and perhaps somewhere along one of those stories is going to touch the heart of someone that's listening and maybe cause them to think a little bit more about how they can impact some lives.
Yeah, I think in a general sense, it's been really cool to see people connecting with each other that have some kind of common, I won't call it an issue, but they have some kind of commonality that brings them together and they've never connected before. So our mission is connecting the community of people who care. So, and we feel like if we connect them, then big things will happen. So, just seeing some of those connections happen. We've had people put out, like it's really interesting. One person is really trying to build a loving community around this little baby that has a heart problem and had heart surgery. And so people are, even though they don't know the family directly, they're rallying and they're saying positive things to somebody who is connected to the family and can share these positive comments. And so that's been really cool. And he's doing well. And he just got his tube out a couple days ago, I think. And so people are following along this little baby's journey and trying to do whatever they can to uplift the family. So that's been very cool. There's just been so many things. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. But lots of community building. We had somebody shared with us the other day that there's somebody that's been on, and some people don't even they get on and they scroll through and they don't participate. And you know what? That's okay too. If people just get comfort from just scrolling and looking at all this positive stuff, that's fine. We're such a diverse group, and we really want people to know that however you choose to participate with Lovelight, whatever works for you is exactly how we want you to participate. So we got word the other day that somebody had seen a post about, I don't know exactly what the post was, but she had lost her mom in an accident. And she said whatever this post was just made her break down in tears about not the article itself, but about what Lovelight's out to do. And that she's found this community that is just such a powerful group of loving, caring people. And so she was overcome with emotion just by the whole concept of being part of a community like this.
Well, and I think, a lot of times, as you say, not everyone is going to participate, obviously, in putting in posts and that type of thing. But the fact that they're going through and scrolling down and reading those things, something is going to really touch their lives and make a difference for them. It's interesting. Now, obviously, in your business, you get involved in marketing, right?
Correct.
Okay, so what has been fascinating to me recently is I've been, reading Facebook and getting online and so forth. I notice a lot of negativity and sadness and continual posting about this is happening and this is what's happening to me and oh this is going on and so on and so forth. But within those posts I never see any glimmer of hope or glimmer of inspiration or light that is coming from that. And I think from a marketing standpoint, what would that do to a business if all you're posting is sad stories that you never talk about the positive aspects and the outcome?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. And when our team got together at the very beginning of this, we decided we are going to run this like a business because we want it to be a viable entity. It can't be just a hobby for some of us. We really need to put our hearts and souls into it as if it were a business. So we've talked about that, but we also have to walk that fine line of not being as harsh as you sometimes need to be in business. But from a marketing standpoint, absolutely. Nobody really, I mean, there are people that thrive in that negative world, but those aren't the people that you try to attract in your business or that we're trying to attract in Lovelight. And, those are the people we want to help, I won't say convert, but we want to inspire them to not do that. And, I'm a big believer. I've followed Napoleon Hill's work for years and years, and I'm such a big believer in what goes in your head. You're feeding your mind just like you feed your body. And so we're hoping that this really feeds a lot of minds so much positivity that they have a very low tolerance for anything else, and certainly would think twice before posting something negative. And we've got a couple of administrators on the site, and we do monitor the site. And every now and then we have to take stuff down because people will put something that is not in alignment with our mission. So we do have to monitor it a little bit, but it's minimal. I mean, it's very minimal on people that generally post negative stuff aren't drawn to a group like Lovelight usually. So, but yeah, it's there's just no downside to being positive.
Well, and what keeps running through my mind is this quote, and I've heard so many different types of quotes on this, but you're the mirror image of the five people that you hang around with, and or whatever that happens to be.
Yeah.
And I think you're hitting a really interesting point that as we get online, and particularly as we go to Facebook, and most people are doing it, I do it, most people do. The reality is that they tend to read what their friends are saying and who the community is that they belong to, and many times those end up being very negative, very unhappy, very sad commentaries, which literally I firmly believe that we tend to absorb the energy and the emotions of those around us. And so if we end up constantly seeing that, it becomes a real problem. It was really interesting. I had someone request to be a friend for me from Brazil. And I'm going, holy cow, okay, so I'll do that. And because I always love to travel, and I love to make friends outside of the country. And then I said, why did you friend me? I always ask this of people that I have no clue who they are. And here's what's interesting. She says, David Corbin, who we both know from CEO Space, is a good friend of mine. And he belongs to this group called CEO Space. And she said, I decided to friend all of his friends that he was connected with in this group because they tend to post more positive things on Facebook. And I thought, you know what, that is so interesting how there's a conscious effort, if we think about it, to just start to surround ourselves with positivity rather than all the negativity that's going on. I rarely listen to the news. I have to admit that recently I've been listening because of what's going on. But even then, the negativity, sometimes I just have to turn it off because I'm so tired of hearing all of this negativity and hatred. And to be able to develop a group like this where people will start to participate, whether they're just reading or whether they're actually posting, ultimately, I think with Facebook, these are the posts they're starting to see on Facebook most of the time. And that's going to just lift their lives.
Yeah, I agree so much. And, I do think there's a responsibility. It's a choice. I mean, it requires discipline because it is easy to get sucked into the negativity sometimes and to get sucked into the news. And, I've made some choices that help me with that. So when on my phone, when I pull up Google, I don't have that feed anymore because that feed's just so easy to see the bad headlines. I don't even want to see the headlines, let alone dig into the story. So I got rid of the feed. All I get is the search bar. That's just one idea that somebody shared with me that has been really helpful. And rarely turn on the TV, have mostly streaming services. So if I do turn on the TV, it's intentional. It's what I'm going to watch versus, oh, I'm just scrolling through and I see a whole bunch of negativity. So I do think it requires some inner discipline on each of us to monitor how that stuff gets into our head and try to minimize it because it comes from a million different angles. So you have to actually put up a barrier and work hard not to let it in. And it is easy sometimes to get sucked in, but you just have to try really, really hard not to. And so what we're hoping is that the Lovelight Circle will tip the scales to where there's more positivity than negativity, and it's the positivity that's getting through easier than the negativity.
Well, and literally, this is what I think is going to, and I have to say, re-change, because we have literally developed a culture of hatred, of anger, and you see that all of the time. And a few people talk about how on earth are we ever going to change the culture back to where we were as this incredible country that we're all so proud of, at least we were, and that really represents freedom in so many ways, including that of giving and touching lives and lifting people. And I think that it's this type of thing that slowly will start to change the culture. And I think it's the only thing. You can't. I get into a discussion with my daughter, who, she's a millennial, and if she listens to this, she's going to call me and really scream at me. But that's okay. But we get into a discussion, and one of the discussions we got into was the difference between the structure changing things versus internal people within the community changing things. And it was really interesting discussion. And my point that I was making to her is, I don't care what the structure tries to accomplish, if the people internally are not willing to change and to really do what needs to be done from a positive culture standpoint, it'll never happen.
Well, with all due respect to your daughter, I believe you are correct. And I think the reason why is it has to be a personal responsibility how you show up in the world. And there's nobody that can tell you or make you show up in a way that they want. You have to decide for yourself how you want to show up. And so I think it's absolutely 100% personal responsibility. And that's what we want to help inspire very much. I just thought of another story, if I could pivot a minute.
Please, absolutely.
So when Logan's stepmom and I got together and we went to meet with our partner who developed the web store for us. They're actually a client of mine on the consulting side. Okay. And we went and talked to them and said, is this something you can help us with? We have this idea. And they said, yes, absolutely, carte blanche, whatever you want. They're a promotional products company called Shumsky, and they have just been amazing, amazing partners. We could not do what we're doing without Shumsky. So anyway, they offered us whatever we needed, including their design team. So they connected us with their designers to design this logo. And as it turned out, one of the designers was down in the Oregon district that night when the shooting happened. He was if I understand this correctly, he was in the bar next door to where this happened, and saved by a piece of bulletproof glass. A bullet had come right through and gotten lodged in the bulletproof glass right where he was standing. And so we met with him, and he is just this kind soul. And he said, I try to give my time and talent to tornado relief and to churches and to whatever I can do to plug into the community to give back. And he said, I've been really struggling with this one, not knowing how can I help this? How can I give back? And so what's so amazing is the way he was able to give back was to create this beautiful logo. We love our logo, and know how much of his heart and soul went into designing this logo. And it gave him a creative outlet to deal with the grief of what had happened. And so really from day one, this whole thing has really been finding people, to have an impact on. And so we're so grateful to Tim for his beautiful, beautiful design.
Well, and what's interesting is that so often, and I think that becomes the challenge, so often I've talked to people, I've been guilty of this. How do I make an impact on the world? And then I'm reminded of the story, and I love this story about the starfish and the little boy on the beach that's sitting there playing, and he's taking these starfish and throwing them back into the water. And some man walks up to him and goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, I'm throwing these starfish back or they're going to die." And he says, "Look around you. There are thousands of starfish." He says, "What do you think you can do?" And so he takes another one and he throws it in again. And he says, "I just made a difference for that one." And I think that becomes the point, is that so often we kind of get a little overwhelmed on how can I really affect change and positivity in the world, when in reality, all we have to do is just touch the one.
Yeah, and that is so true. And the other thing is we just have to give ourselves the space to even think about what we can do. So another story, one of our team members, an amazing young man named Josh Ballard, he found out about Lovelight and was really touched by the concept. And he said he drives a lot, he's in sales, and he's in the car a lot. And he said, I was thinking, what can I do that will make a difference? And so he has started a video series called Sunrise with Lovelight. And so he interviews these people that are doing good things in the world, and he always times it so that it's as the sun's coming up, and does these beautiful videos to tell the stories we had, or Josh arranged for this teacher who found out that there were kids in schools where if their parents had not put money on their cards for lunch, they just don't get to eat. And she said there is absolutely no way that should ever happen to a child. And then, of course, they get shamed because they're sitting at the lunch table with no food.
Right.
It's a very visible situation. Plus, they're going hungry. And so she has started an organization to really help with that and try to solve that problem. And much like we're trying to do, make it spread across the country. Amazing, amazing woman. And so Josh captured that story in one of the episodes of Sunrise with Lovelight, and he's got a whole list of people. There's not going to be an end of people that he can interview who are doing really cool things in the world.
And I think that's great. Now, as a business owner, let me ask you this question because I've always maintained that, you know, as we focus on working with other businesses, that, you know, as we get into this whole concept of the real big why, and, you know, we can go into all of that, the purpose of the business and so forth. But, you know, you talk about Starbucks. Now, here's a company that is extraordinarily successful and really focused on so many things, and yet here's the story about where they're really focused on helping people and willing to align with you guys and really move forward in that. From your perspective, how many times do we get caught up, even as business owners, in making the money and hitting the marks and doing all of that and really forget what it's really all about?
You know, it's a really interesting question for me personally right now, as we're trying to do so much with Lovelight, and I'm trying to do so much with my business, and it's that balance of how do I give the proper amount of time to my give back efforts, how do I give the proper amount of time to my business, and then how do I give a proper amount of time to myself and my family and my friends. And so it's really a balancing act. But this was really cool. There's a gentleman, he's affiliated with one of our clients, and he lives in Singapore, and he's like a philanthropist on this massive, massive scale. He's created an organization that feeds school-age children like in the millions. It's amazing what he's done. And so I told him about Lovelight, and he said, your business will thrive because of this, not the other way around. And he said, you know, when you do good things happen to you in all areas of your life. And he's this really, really interesting gentleman. And he said, it's really where it starts. When you really put some energy into being a good steward of our world, then lots of other good things will ripple effect in your own personal world. And it's really interesting. I'm already seeing that happen with my business because I have to manage my time so much better because I want to give time to Lovelight. So I'm putting a lot more focus into my business so that I can get back to my Lovelight stuff, you know, or, you know, whatever we're happen to be working on with Lovelight. But it really does do good things. And then I have a business advisor, and he said, I know you're doing Lovelight for all the right reasons, but you should put that on your LinkedIn because people need to know, A, that it's out there, and B, that they're dealing with an organization that cares enough to have something in their profile like Lovelight. So it's really interesting how they both kind of work together.
Well, they really do. And what I've found oftentimes, and I've always maintained that even in business, as you focus on the business aspects and the business culture and so forth, literally, as you build a culture within your company, that culture is going to move out into the culture of a family, the culture of a community, and all of those types of things. So I'm not sure that you can ever separate the two, really.
Yeah, and you know it's sparked another thought. Mitch Tomlin, who works for my consulting firm, I have asked him, he's very talented with video. And so I've asked him to help Josh with the post-production of these videos. So I told him he could use company time to do that because it's important for us as a company to have that ability to spend our time on doing these kinds of things. And he's doing a great job, and it brings something to the culture of our company as well as bringing help to Lovelight.
Well, and that's amazing. So What would be the message that you would want to share with the folks that are listening this or watching this today?
I am really sorry, you kind of broke up at the beginning of
Oh,
that
I'm
question.
sorry. What is the message that you would like to share to the people who are watching this today or listening to this?
Yeah, I think the big message is that there is a community of really good people, and it's a big community, and we're just trying to all gather in one place. And that if you want to find people that love and care about other people, there is a place to go find those people. And then really just to inspire people to action. We really want people to take action, and it can be tiny, tiny little action that makes a really big difference. And we see stories every single day on the Facebook group about how a small effort has had a tremendous impact on somebody. So we really want to inspire people just to do something, even if it feels little to you, it might be huge to someone else.
And that makes a difference. And so are they able to go on Facebook and actually just join the group?
Yes. So the Facebook group is Lovelight Circle, and it's all one word. And yes, we want people to join the Facebook community, certainly. And then down the road, and not too far down the road, we're waiting till we get the web store launched in a couple of weeks. But down the road, we're going to be looking for community ambassadors. So if there's somebody who really wants to take this idea and run with it in their own community, I mean, we're already very strong in Dayton just because it kind of emanated here,
Right.
but we want to replicate what we have here in Dayton in every community around the country. So if there are people out there that want to really take this concept and make it a bigger thing in their communities, we really want to work with those people, because we know that's, it's just all about organic growth. And we don't have a budget for marketing. We're going to depend on people's willingness to share our story through various means. So, but we do want to connect with people that would like to have a larger role in helping bring this to the masses.
And what would it look like? Let's say, okay, I'd love to be an ambassador. What's that going to look like, and what does that entail, and what am I going to be doing out there ideally to really make it good?
Yeah, so that's really kind of the fun part, is we don't want to dictate that. We want that to be, okay, you figure out what this needs to look like in your community. We don't know your community. How can this concept work best for you? And get them thinking creatively, that could then be something that we're like, oh, look what they're doing in Chattanooga. We need to do that in Dayton, and just start spreading these ideas. So we want the community ambassadors to just really be creative and figure out what it looks like. We're not putting any rules or guidelines other than please keep everything in line with the mission.
Right.
But we really want to make it kind of free form and make it organic, and let people be creative and plug in new and different ways that we have not thought of.
And they'll be able to go onto the website or onto the Facebook site and interact with people and get ideas and ask questions and so on and so forth. So they wouldn't be alone in doing this. They would absolutely get all of the ideas they need on how to encourage them to do that.
Exactly. And one of the things it'll be on our next round of things that we want to do on our website, is have this resource library of all these great ideas. Christine's Starbucks thing, and video interviews of awesome people, and the Sunrise with Lovelight stuff. And then we have another member named Susie who did this, those handouts that you see like on a bulletin board at a Starbucks or a grocery store or whatever, and it has, looking for a roommate, and they have the pull tabs with the phone number.
Right.
So Susie built this sheet. She just came up with this idea. It was completely her original thought. Came up with this sheet that tells about Lovelight, and then all of the little tear-offs are random acts of kindness. And so you can just go up and say, oh yeah, I'll do this random act of kindness, and just rip it off and go do it. So there's just no end to what people can come up with and dream up to do this. So that's really what we want to inspire people to do in the various communities. And this, even though this started in Dayton, Ohio, we don't want it to just be Dayton, Ohio. We really want it to be a national movement and an ongoing long-term thing. And when you asked about how do we change this culture, the grants that we're going to be giving out although we'll consider all grant applications, we're really going to put a focus on mental health programs that impact preschool through junior high students. And we figure if we can impact that next generation, that's going to be, I mean, this is a slow roll to change a culture like what we have right now. We didn't get here overnight, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. But we feel like if we can really touch that next generation and we teach them about kindness and anti-bullying and how to show up in a mindful, loving way, that they can change the culture by default, because they won't be wired for all this hatred. They will be wired for love and light. And so we really want to put a focus on that next generation.
And I think you've hit it on the head. It's the new generation that's going to make the changes, literally. But it's the old generation that's going to support that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that gets really interesting. Well, you know what? God bless you, and God bless your team, and what a wonderful thing that you're doing. I think it's amazing. And folks, if you have even an inkling, get on Facebook and join the Lovelight Circle and become a part of this movement, because I can tell you it makes a difference not only in the lives of the people that you come in contact with, but it's going to make a difference in your own life. So, Betsy, thanks so much for being on the show today.
So much for having me, Doug. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this story of Lovelight.
And folks, thanks for listening, and we look forward to having you join us again when we put the next one out. And have a wonderful week, and look around and see how you can touch someone's life.